2 years ago on this day, the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, removing the constitutional right to an abortion. Since then, a group in Arizona has been trying to get an abortion enshrinement on the ballot. And joining us now with more information on this is attorney Chris Love. Chris, welcome. Thanks for being here.
So nice to meet you, Steve.
Nice to meet you after all these years. Yes. So, before we get into the specifics about the ballot measure, how long have you been in the reproductive rights space?
For about a decade. I started as a volunteer at Planned Parenthood Arizona, and then I served as the board chair for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Arizona for several years. And now I've moved into my role here with the Arizona for Abortion Access Ballot Initiative.
So a little bit of up and down clearly over the years. So though we could see it coming, I suppose, anticipating once former President Trump had appointed certain people to the Supreme Court, what did it feel like? First there was the leak, of course, but then 2 years ago today when the Dobbs ruling came down and Roe v. Wade was overturned, how did you feel about that?
You know, I think that we saw the road ahead, right? I won't say that anyone didn't anticipate that this could be the thing that happened. And even though we were prepared, there was no amount of preparation you could do for kind of the gut punch that happened on that day. On that day in particular, Planned Parenthood Arizona had to turn away 100 patients seeking abortion care. And we paused all abortion services like other abortion care providers throughout the state because there was some difficulties in understanding what the status of the law was.
Were you angry?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was angry. You know, I've been fighting for these rights for well over a decade. To see them slip away just with the appointment of, you know, a couple of very aggressive anti-abortion Supreme Court justices was, you know, definitely something that hurt.
So this will be a very sort of cynical question, but when it comes to the politics of these things, the fact that it was done in a way that was, you know, pretty offensive to a lot of people, does that make the effort to enshrine abortion rights in Arizona, perhaps in some way across the country again, a little bit easier in the sense that it seemed to be done in such a way like, boom, all these rights are now gone?
I think that the American people really woke up once they saw that the Supreme Court had decided to overturn precedent for nearly 50 years at that point in time. And they thought that to themselves, if they can take away abortion rights, what else is next? So
let's take a little moment in time for how the measure is currently going. You need to have, I want to say, nearly 400,000 valid signatures. And of course, that comes fraught with, well, let's get at least 100,000 more than that, I suppose. But unofficially, what are your numbers right now?
So we anticipate turning in just around 800,000 signatures on July 3rd. 9 a.m. at the Secretary of State's office. We're very excited. We're excited to finally see that, you know, the fruition of all this work that we've been doing. But also, I think we're excited because Arizona voters really came through for us, and they really want to see this issue on the ballot.
Has this been statewide? Have you seen sort of an equal measure there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that the majority of our voters are here in Maricopa County, and a lot are in Pima County. But we've been from every corner of the state, from Yuma to Bullhead City, collecting signatures from folks who want to enshrine the right to abortion in the Constitution.
Let's talk terminology a little bit, Chris, because you are not shy about saying abortion, and you shouldn't be, but reproductive rights is sort of the more the catchphrase these days. Does that in any way say anything about the circumstances? Does that bother you in any way? I
mean, I don't think it bothers me. I think we were very intentional about including abortion in the actual title of our initiative here, giving people permission to say the word abortion, right? But, you know, we're focusing strictly on abortion, but I think we've seen that, you know, the whole bundle of reproductive rights are under attack. We've seen cases about IVF, we've seen, you know, gender affirming care, and those things are part of that reproductive rights, reproductive freedom bundle with abortion.
All right, I'm going to say 1864. Quick reaction. I'm kidding to some extent. But I mean, but that really became also not much more than a talking point, like a really vital part of this, right?
Right, and I think that the Arizona Supreme Court's decision made it really real for a lot of folks. So anyone who was kind of sitting on the sidelines before that decision came down, they were in the game soon after. So we saw a spike in signatures and people really interested in collecting signatures for us, donations, all of those things. And they're the folks that got us to this 800,000 number.
So how much of that weighs in, Chris, for you as far as what the best arguments here? Because this is truly, I mean, it's been made a partisan issue. But we know there are a lot of people in the Republican Party who think that abortion should be legal to whatever degree it should be. But the fact that there were some people in the legislature who are, let's say, are not that highly regarded, who wanted to retain potentially the 1864 measure. How much does that help the argument? Because it almost feels like, well, then you're going against extremes. So if someone is reasonable at all, they might want to sign the petition at least.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been running a very nonpartisan campaign because we understand that Arizonans from across the political spectrum believe the same thing that we do, that pregnant patients should have the freedom to make personal healthcare decisions, especially those about abortion, with their families and their healthcare provider, and they don't want politicians involved in that calculus at all.
And yet politicians have been involved in this for so long. Do you see a way that if the measure gets on the ballot and if the measure passes, that maybe we'll hear a little bit less from state lawmakers or elected officials about this issue?
I mean, maybe. They always need something to kind of throw to their audience to get them to come out and vote for them, right? But that's the intent of what we're doing. We want something that is durable and sustainable, and that's why we're seeking to amend the state constitution.
All right, let me ask you a little bit about the opposition. And opposition, again, not from what could be labeled the extreme right, just folks who are not in favor of the measure. I'm being facetious to some extent. Do we expect a lot of lawsuits to come out if the measure passes, or even before, once the signatures are turned in?
Listen, we've been dealing with anti-abortion folks, well, at least I have for the last decade, right? And so they truly believe in what they're saying. So we fully expect that they will run a full-throated opposition campaign. We're glad that the legislature decided not to refer something to compete with us in the ballot directly. But I expect a battle before we get on the ballot with the signature challenges, after we get on the ballot, and then perhaps after we pass. So I don't think that they've lost their energy, but we also haven't lost our fight.
Well, I'm always impressed by people, whether it's in abortion or many other issues, that are willing to stand in the face of what is awful rhetoric often. Who knows if people back these things up, but when you hear about abortion providers should be killed or someone who supports this should be killed, I mean, this is a horrible thing to make, let's say, political hay of, but does that help too? When people start hearing extremes like that, it's like, well, I really don't want to support someone who says things like that.
I mean, I think that we're finding that out, right? Most Arizona voters feel that our measure is in alignment with Arizona values of individualism, of making your own independent choices about what happens with your body. And so, I think that hearing that extreme rhetoric definitely turns a lot of folks off and actually opens their ears to what we are saying with respect to our ballot initiative.
I'm risking putting the cart before the horse, Chris, but from a federal standpoint, how important to some extent is it for Arizonans to elect people who support abortion rights even at the federal level? Do you think there would be momentum potentially for this to become federally protected again, or are you just focused on Arizona right now?
We are solely focused on Arizona. We have hopes for the federal protections because, having a patchwork of states that have different laws doesn't serve anyone. It's not equal access to abortion, right? But at the same time, we are solely focused on what we can do here within our state and with the folks that will support us in November.
So last few seconds, if you get this thing on the ballot, optimistic it'll pass?
I'm absolutely 100% positive that we will win.
Okay. Chris Love, great to finally meet you, as we said. Thanks for being here on Arizona Horizon.
Thank you.